Here we go. All right. So let's do this again. I'm going to share my screen with you. All right, let me know if you can see that all right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So as you probably know, I'm here to talk about Wake Forest School of Business, specifically the specialized master's programs. Before we get into it,
Mm-hmm.
here's a few things that you should know about Wake Forest and Winston-Salem itself. You'll probably notice some of the people. You have Chris Paul, Tim Duncan, now Hall of Fame
Mm-hmm.
Tim Duncan, and that last young man is Arnold Palmer, all alumni of Wake Forest. And then on the other side are some of the companies that are actually headquartered here. So some that you're probably familiar with, like Krispy Kreme, Texas Pete Hot Sauce, East Coast Wings, which I love, and Reynolds American, the tobacco company. So I put this slide in here
Mm-hmm.
because the first few times I did this, I realized that some people had never really heard of Winston-Salem. They didn't know where it was on the map or anything about it. So I figured I would include some sort of key figures and facts, if you will, about the area and what we have to offer here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the school itself. So this is a look inside of Farrell Hall. So this is where all of our programs take place. We do share this building with the undergraduate business students as well. And this is what we call the living room. As you can see, it has a bunch of couches and tables and a bagel shop. Not quite like my living room, but it
Mm-hmm.
is definitely a living room, to say the least. And here's kind of what it looks like when we have some, I guess, in a way, pretty weather, although it's not springtime pretty. This is the outside. So just another look at the building itself and what it has to offer. So it is 4 floors, technically, that living room floor. There's one floor in the middle, which hosts a small library and study rooms. And then up top is the what we call BBC, as well as some other classrooms. And then it does actually have a downstairs level as well with additional classrooms, study rooms, and an auditorium are all down there. So it's a pretty expansive building, one of the newest ones on campus. And it's not unlikely to see other people outside of the business school come by to visit us, to hang out, have their own meetings right there in the living room. So as I mentioned before, we have 3 specialized programs. One, the MSM program, Master of Science in Management. The MSA is accounting, and then our MSBA program in business analytics. I actually was a student in the MSM program going on 4 years ago. So that's one that I definitely know a lot about and can also share some of my experiences in. So we'll start with the MSM and the curriculum. So what I should say about all of these programs, they're specialized, one, because of their subject matter, but also because of the time span. So as you can see by the curriculum here, it's a very condensed program. We're talking about 10 months or so. So you would start in July. Typically orientation is right after 4th of July with some courses like why business, personal branding, business communications, and then you kind of move through some of what we would call the core classes of business. So you see analytics, marketing, finance, and then in the spring, what you would have is your macro managerial economics. What I should also mention about the MSM program and what makes it so special is the action learning project, which you see both in the fall and in the spring. So you're assigned to a team of about 4 or 5 other students, and you're assigned a business problem. So some of those same companies I mentioned earlier, like Krispy Kreme, Texas Pete, Reynolds American, will come in and partner with all of the teams that we have and give them a real business problem to work on. And it's a chance for you to use the skills that you're learning in that class, or in all of your classes, I should say, and apply it to a real world business problem. So you have the opportunity to do that twice. So the first action learner project, each team has the same project. You're all given the same task. You come up with your own version of the solution. And then it's actually judged by the company themselves. So whoever does the best is awarded a prize in a way, and really bragging rights to say we had the best solution out of the entire class. And then the Action Learner Project 2 is a similar setup, except everyone has a different problem. So you could be looking at one team that does have Texas Pete, one team could have Reynolds American, a different team could have Pepsi or Frito-Lay. And again, it's a chance for you to work with your team to apply a lot of the different skills that you've been learning throughout the course of the program. For somebody like myself, that was really beneficial. Having studied communications in undergrad, I didn't have any internship experience. I wasn't really familiar with breaking down the business problem and working with the team to solve it. So it really helped me in being able to prepare for interviews. So when they would ask, tell me about a time that you worked in the team and it was successful, then I would be able to say, well, right now, this is what we're doing currently. And here's been my role in helping and making it a success. So that's one of the bigger pieces of the MSM and the curriculum there. And then, of course, one of the most important pieces is getting a job. So here are some of the main careers that our MSM students go into, everything from human resources to marketing, and then just a sample size of what their compensation is like after graduation. And again, these numbers are sort of averages. It can fluctuate based on the company you work for, the role that you have going into it. It could even be location. So sometimes they have to adjust for the cost of living. So New York salary may be different than, I don't know, South Carolina somewhere. And then, of course, you see the statistics at the bottom. So we do have the number one career management team in the country when it comes to helping graduate students find job placement after graduation. So I really like to brag on them because they are awesome and they really take the time to get to know you and what it is that you want to do. So I always like to highlight them when I can. So MSA is a little different only because there are two sort of pathways, if you want to call it that. So one is the 3-semester program. The other is a 2-semester program. The only difference between the two is really whether or not you've had an internship experience and if you want to go through the full recruiting cycle as some people have already done in undergrad. So people that take the 3-semester program are those who are still job seeking or are looking for an internship. That's not to say that everyone that takes that pathway doesn't have any prospects. It could be that they interned for KPMG and they've decided I want to kind of put myself back in recruiting and see if I can land an offer from another firm or change locations, whatever the case may be. And then 2 semesters is those who already have something lined up, but they want to take the additional hours and prepare for the CPA exam. So that's really the biggest difference you'll see there. So in the 3-semester program, you'll see in that spring semester is where the internship takes place. And that's really the only difference between the two there. Kind of look at some of the tracks that we offer. So we offer 3. We have audit, tax, and financial transaction services. And then there's a breakdown of how many of our students roughly follow each track. So audit is one of the more popular ones. Tax, not so much, and financial transaction services is about the same. And it's not so much about the popularity itself why students do it. It could be job prospects. So the FTS track and sometimes even tax may be a little bit more difficult to get into when you're thinking about your first opportunity after graduate school. So that's why a lot of them tend to go into audit. There's a lot more opportunities there just coming out of school. And it does, allow you to open up a pathway to do something else further down the road. So that's kind of a breakdown of where our students tend to fall in this. Mm-hmm. And here are some of the core courses that you would see in accounting. So one thing you'll probably notice, similar to the MSM program, is we're incorporating analytics into just about everything because it's become such a big part of understanding business and being able to make good business decisions. So even in accounting here, you'll see that we've included some data analytics and communication courses. So these are some of the core courses that everybody takes. And then here are some that are more track specific. So if you're in assurance, also known as audit, those are some of the courses you would take there. Same for tax and financial transaction services. And then electives is just kind of left open because there are quite a few to choose from. So it's kind of up to you at that point to figure out what is it that I'd really like to know more about and dive deeper into and be able to follow it. So that's that there. Mm-hmm. And then some of the electives that I mentioned are as listed. So again, it's a chance for you to be able to take something that's either further along the path that you're already working toward, or maybe even to dive into something that is interesting to you and you haven't been able to do it just yet. And then, of course, the important part, once again, is careers. So for accounting students, these are the top employers that we have. And although the recent city locations is numbered, it's not necessarily a ranking system. Those are just the top um, 8 or 9 cities that these students tend to go to. So probably no surprise that they're mostly around big financial markets like Boston, Chicago, New York, even Charlotte. Raleigh is one that is continuing to grow. So you'll probably see that more and more often. So again, it's not really a ranking order for either one, just an example of where students tend to go to work, both for the company and for the physical location. Let's go back just a second because I remembered what I wanted to mention for MSA, and I mentioned it briefly, was about the recruiting cycle. So for us here, we do what's called Meet the Firms, and each of the firms that you see listed on this sheet here come to Wake Forest to recruit our students specifically. So instead of when you go to a career fair at school, and typically everybody will show up mixed in amongst another 30 or 40 other tables, and you kind of have to wait in line, and you might get 2 minutes or so to talk to a recruiter. When we do Meet the Firms, each of these firms come, they set up a table, we put you in a group of about 5 to 6 other students, and then we basically, not necessarily speed dating, but we give you about 15 to 20 minutes at each table. So it gives you a chance to actually talk to each employer with a representative. And it's an opportunity for you not just to learn more about them and what they have to offer, but to also be able to, ask the real questions that you want to ask, and for them to get familiar and get to know you a little bit better too. So I wanted to be sure that I didn't forget to mention that there. So MSBA, Business Analytics, as you probably know, this is one of the newer programs of the 3 that we offer. This one, I want to say we'll be going into year 5. I think that's right. So still one of the fairly new programs that we offer, but probably not very surprising what you'll see as part of the curriculum. Now, what's really neat about all of our programs is that it doesn't just give you the technical skills, but you also get the professional development skills too. What I mean by that is, even for business analytics, some of the bigger things that are important are understanding SAS and R, modeling, data management. But then you can kind of see mixed in there in that lighter pink color is professional and experiential learning stuff. So career management and analytics in the boardroom. And what it's trying to do is combine you being able to understand the technical side of it and being able to explain it. So if you're really good at breaking apart data and allowing it to tell the story, that's great. But the other half of that is being able to put it in a way that makes sense to the rest of your team. So if you go to work, I don't know, for Apple, everyone that's there working with you wouldn't necessarily be a software engineer or a developer. So you'd have to be able to translate something that seems very simple to you. You have to be able to translate that to other people who may not necessarily speak the same language. So that's what you'll see in all of our different programs, is being able to make it make sense to other people, being able to be a polished professional, and also just be confident in knowing that your skill set and your training thus far has prepared you to do what it is they're asking you to do. And then, of course, as always, careers. So these are some of the employers that have hired students from Wake Forest, specifically with the MSBA program. Some of them are local, like Inmar, Haynes Brand, even Red Hat has an office not too far from here. Bank of America is down in Charlotte. And then you see some of the bigger names. So you'll see Disney, for example. One thing that's cool about business analytics is that it's very versatile. So it allows you the flexibility to work in just about any sort of industry you can think of. Everybody from Disney, which was a surprise to me at first, to Nike, to grocery stores, hospitals, they're all using analytics in some way to have the best sort of outcomes for their, whether it's customers, if it's patients, whatever the case may be, they're using this data to be able to make better business decisions. So that's one thing that's really neat about this program, is that it allows that sort of flexibility to be just about anywhere. Oh, this is another good part. I love this one. Student support. So the cool part about this is you see people like me on the front end, the recruiters that come to the school. Well, can't do that anymore right now, but typically we come out to the school, do things like this to have conversations and share information about all the stuff that we offer. But these are the people that really get it done on a day-to-day basis. So, the students that we have coming in for this upcoming class, when the school year starts, I really won't see them because I spend so much time going out and talking to other people. So these are the people that really make things happen. So you have enrollment management, which technically I fall under that. That also includes our operations team. So you'll see like financial aid falls under there. Marketing falls under enrollment management as well. So some of the messages that you might receive from us come from them. You got program faculty and leadership. So that includes people like the dean of the school, the program deans, and then just your particular professors as well. Integrative student services are the people that really keep you engaged while you're there. So during my time as a student, this was having tailgates before football games. We would find, a section of tickets to go to a basketball game together. We could go to the President's Ball together, have game nights, karaoke, movies, bowling nights, whatever the case may be. These are the people that really take their time to help you feel like you found another family here. Most of us here come from other universities who we are very prideful about. But this is a chance for us to help you feel part of the Wake Forest family as well. And then market readiness and employment are everybody's favorite people because those are the ones that help get jobs, which is extremely important. And what's neat about them is that they don't do a sort of cookie cutter approach. They really take the time to get to know every single student and what it is that's important to you. They're not going to say, well, you like talking, so I think you'll be good at making sales over the phone. Well, you should do that. But they really figure out, what are you interested in? What sort of role would be interesting to you? Where do you want to be? And then being able to take it a step further and say, all right, well, let's make sure your LinkedIn page is nice and tidy. If you don't have one, no problem. We'll help you figure it out. And then how can we help you make connections too? So really digging into the Wake Forest connection and seeing if you want to work in tech in Silicon Valley. Well, let's see if we have any alum out there currently doing the job that you want to do or could see yourself doing, and let you and help you make that connection and get you going in the right direction. So that's what's really neat about them. And they're all just really good people too. So the other cool part is that in a way they will kind of hound you. So they'll check in with you. You don't necessarily have to wait on them to come to you because they will find you and ask you, like, hey, well, you had an interview last Tuesday. How'd it go? Where did things stand? How can we move forward? Really take the time to develop those relationships, which I can't speak for anybody else, but I know that it helps tremendously with the students that we have. So that's always exciting there. Application process, some of the stuff is a little bit outdated. But I want to say for things like the GMAT and GRE prep, a lot of that stuff has changed. Obviously, those dates are no longer applicable, but we are still doing some of those virtual sessions. And I know they've also made changes themselves to how they're doing testing. So us, as well as several other schools, have sort of revised the way in which they're doing it when it comes to standardized testing and what their application requirements are. But outside of that, it's a pretty standard format. So submitting a resume, transcripts, we ask for 2 recommenders, and then doing an interview. Now, again, we're not necessarily doing them on campus right now because nobody's on campus. So everything is virtual, but it's really no big deal for us to do it that way. So nothing there that's kind of out of the ordinary. Most things you would probably expect. Oh, this is a good part too. Financial aid stuff. So here are some sources of financial aid and what might be available. So one of the bigger pieces is scholarship. So what we do is look at every single application and we try to award as much scholarship as we can. Most of it is based on merit. So, GPA, and we just talked about standardized testing. So your GPA, your transcript overall. So over the course of 4 years, how well did you do in pursuing your degree? Um, but then we also look at other pieces like your resume. So if you're someone that has been involved on campus, you've had internships, you've volunteered, you've served in the AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, we look at all of those different factors of what have you been able to contribute and what are you bringing to the table to be able to award as much scholarship as possible. And then some other pieces we'll talk about here in just a second as well. So scholarship, I just touched on that. Again, mainly based on academic merit, but we also take a look at financial need and then any individual award criteria. And what that means is we have certain scholarships that are directed for a particular purpose. They could be based on community service. So we have awards that are based on how well and how often were you able to serve your community. And then we have some that are more what we might call like a Renaissance man, Renaissance woman, those individuals that really get it done across all facets. So academically, socially, culturally, just all across the board, checking all the boxes. So that's kind of what that means there. And then the cool part there is that awards are included with your decision. So there's no separate application for it. When you submit your application itself, that's pretty much it. And then some other sources. So veterans benefits, we do acknowledge Yellow Ribbon program here. And then there's a step in there for how you would be able to submit that. Any questions so far? I know I'm throwing a lot out there.
No, not really, no.
Okay. And then once you do your FAFSA paperwork, you can find our school code here, but it's also listed on the website as well. So, don't fret if you feel like you might forget this if you decide to apply or want to refer back to it later. All of this information is listed on the website. This is just a part where I like to at least put it out there so that you know that it is available, and this is how it would go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's me, Dylan. I don't know if I introduced myself earlier, probably didn't, but that is me, and that is my contact information. Email is probably the best way to reach me. I know everybody's kind of adjusting and shifting their schedules and the way they're doing things right now. But I'm always available to get on the phone with people, get on Zoom calls, face-to-face, one-on-one, and talk about any questions, concerns, or anything like that. Yeah. And thanks. But I'm not in any hurry. We have plenty of time to talk about whatever comes to mind, whatever questions you have. It's the open floor, so feel free to shoot away.
Well, okay. This was the first thing I thought of when I saw this because it just caught me by surprise so much.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy that lives down the road from me, about
Okay.
like 4 houses down, whose name is Dylan Robinson.
Is it
went
really?
to my high school, so that was cool. Yeah, seriously.
Well, that's interesting.
Used to ride like the same bus to school every day.
Yeah. Oh, that is fascinating.
What's the other? Yeah. I really like the part, like I forgot what it was called. Where you're talking about like student services and like the integration part of it, like people that just like bring you into like a new family and everything. Because one of the things I've thought about with graduate school is like, you kind of like have your undergrad experience and that's like your whole college thing. I've always like wondered just like how graduate students go about like, basically just doing that again,
Yeah, I mean, it's.
What's your personal experience with that been with it?
I mean, so to give you some perspective, for undergrad, I went to UNC Chapel Hill, so I'm a diehard Tar Heel fan. And even though Wake Forest is in the same conference, they could not sway me either way. But it besides that, they still took the time to say, well, while you're here, we'll show you what it's like to be a part of the Wake Forest family. And what's neat about it is that your classmates aren't just from lots of other universities, but there's also a portion of students that went to Wake for undergrad. So in your class are people who have really an inside knowledge on the school itself and how everything works. So for me, they were able to kind of show us, well, here's where you go and get tacos on Tuesday, and then here's where you go and get wings on Wednesday. Like, here's where trivia night will be. Um, if there's any games that you want to go to, is this one. So, for me at Carolina, it was all about basketball. But here at Wake, they're really behind their men's soccer team. So it was a sort of shift, but they also made that adjustment really easy for me, to be able to show me the ropes and say, well, here at Wake, here's our traditions. So whenever they, for example, when they beat Carolina this year in basketball, they do what's called roll the quad. So they basically TP the entire main quad of the campus every time they win a big basketball game like that, or even football for that matter. Um, and then again, the staff really takes the time to make all of those resources available. So it's not just about celebrating sports, but it's also about cultural awareness too. So they'll celebrate, Chinese New Year and Black History Month and really anything you can think of in between. So they'll host dinners where they invite alumni to come back just to sit with current students, talk about their own experiences, share any advice that they can and how they got to where they are today. Yeah, they make it so not so much that they're like trying to shove it on you, but enough to say, if you do want to be a part of it, we're more than glad to have you to be part of it. So it's a really easy transition. It's
Yeah.
something I found a lot of value in, and I'm still really good friends with a lot of my classmates today.
What was up with UNC this year in basketball? Like, I've been fairly removed, but like that was just a bad season, man. Like, I don't know what was up there.
What was interesting about it was I was so excited. I was like, man, we've got these All Americans coming in. Like, it's gonna be great. This is great. And I want to say in the first 3 weeks or so, we lost to Wofford, maybe Wofford and someone else. And then it hit me like, no, this might actually be a lot worse than what I thought. So, luckily, the ACC tournament didn't conclude, and the NCAA tournament didn't happen. So, as far as we know, this season did not exist. So we're just gonna discount it and start again next year.
Yeah.
We decided, yeah.
All right.
Any other
I'm a
questions?
huge UK fan personally.
Wait, you're
So
a what
like
fan?
it kind of reminded me of like University of Kentucky fan.
Oh my gosh. I should,
Yeah, I know.
I
I
should,
mean, I grew up like right next to Lexington, so it was right there.
you know, I, if nothing else, I'll at least give UK my respect. You've got to respect them. Might not like them, but you got to respect them. So I'll give them their credit for that.
Yeah. That reminded me a lot of like the 2013 season. We had like Nerlens Noel and a lot of other really good starters. And that season also just completely bombed.
It happens. It
And
happens to the best of us. So I know.
was.
What else you
Okay, yeah.
got?
So back to
Welcome back.
Hey.
so from the presentation, I found that like oh yeah, this is a question I had earlier. I was trying to rack my brain to remember it. So are there any like credits that transfer over to this graduate program? Because I was looking at the business analytics one. I
Yep.
think it was that, and I saw there was some on like macroeconomics or
Mhm.
like econometrics, stuff like that. So like those classes that if someone already took, would that credit roll over, or how would that work?
Typically, at least as far as I've seen, everybody sort of starts from scratch. And it's mainly because,
Mhm.
it's built into the program that way. And then in another way, it never really hurts to have a refresher. Because the way that the professors teach it here may be slightly different than the way you've learned it before, which is not bad. but it's just another chance for you to
Yeah.
go back over this material, um, and then also learn it in a way that is directly applied to what you're doing now. So it may be slightly different and just being able to pull it into the whole analytic background.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you mentioned that like for scholarships, that's like included within like your application, right? Like it's just kind of automatically fed in.
Yeah, so anytime you submit your application, we automatically consider you for scholarship. So you don't have to do a separate
Mm-hmm.
application. And then when you receive your decision, it's all together. So it would say, good afternoon, good evening, greetings. Um, we'd like to offer you admission into the program. And then it would include whatever scholarship amount all in one. So you wouldn't have to worry about it being in two separate pieces.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's all the questions I got then. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me. I hope that it was at least worthwhile, somewhat entertaining, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dylan.
No problem. If you think of anything else, you have my email address, so feel free to email me, give me a call, whatever the case may be, and we'll go from there.
All right. Wait, actually, I don't know if I wrote it down. Was it in like the email that got sent out for this?
Kellen, if you want to email or I can email you actually. Is it just kellen.bass@center.edu? I can send you his email if you'd like.
All right. Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right. I'll do that for you, Kellen.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Well, thank you, Dylan, so much.
No
I really
problem.
appreciate it for recording too. And
Yeah,
for talking.
I'll send it over to you, and hopefully
Okay.
you'll be able to edit and change whatever needs to be.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's good seeing you all.
You as well. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Nice meeting
Bye.
you.
You as well, man. Have a good one.
You too.